Welcome again to Ancient Tales for Today. We've been talking about a very interesting part of Israel's history. And today, we actually come to the point where there's a king, and the king is afraid of his enemies. So in today's lesson, probably one of the most famous of all the stories, David and Goliath. This will be lesson number 84, An Arrogant Giant. 一位傲慢的巨人. So stay by for another ancient tale for today.
Story 84, An Arrogant Giant. Have you ever faced a giant? No? I have not either, and I wouldn't want to. A really tall giant in heavy armor with a huge sword ready to chop my head off? No, thank you. The ancient tales speak of a giant like this. He was called Goliath, and he was on the Philistine side, the enemies of Israel. Of course, all the people of Israel were afraid of Goliath, since he was so big and so strong. Goliath was also very arrogant. This means he was very proud of himself and mocked other people. He challenged the army of Israel, demanding that one of them come and fight him. Of course, nobody dared fight such a giant. Twice a day for 40 days, Goliath came out and repeated his challenge. I am sure he really insulted his opponents, calling them cowards, people who were too frightened to fight. But King Saul and all his followers were not brave enough to face Goliath. One day, a teenager called David came and saw what was happening. He was upset at what Goliath was saying against Israel and insulting heaven. So David went to King Saul and offered to fight that giant. The king thought this was very stupid, since David was so young and Goliath was an experienced soldier. But David insisted, and so the king agreed. Goliath was mad that just a youth came out to fight him. David didn't even wear armor because it was too heavy for him. Goliath expected an easy victory, but David used his slingshot to throw a stone at Goliath. The stone hit Goliath on the forehead with such force it sank in. Goliath fell. David ran over and cut off Goliath's head with Goliath's own sword. The Philistines ran away. The story shows us how even the strongest can be defeated by those who have right on their side.
Now that you've heard the story, we come to the actual sentences. Have you ever faced a giant? Well, I mean, I have seen some very tall people, but really 面对一个巨人吗? No? Oh, I haven't either. I have never really faced a giant. I've seen a few tall people, basketball players maybe, but I've never faced a giant. In fact, I wouldn't want to either. No way. I don't want to face a giant. 我根本不想要的. A really tall giant? Think about this. Facing a really tall giant. He's not just skinny. he is strong, he is big, and he has heavy armor, 很重的这个盔甲。You know what armor is? Armor is this thing, it's metal, like metal plating. You put on the Bible. You put it on your chest and your arms and your legs, and when an arrow comes, choom, nah, it won't hurt you. And this giant had a huge sword, 剑, 非常大的剑. A sword is a big knife, a long knife. It's called a sword. So 有一种刀子, but it's a big one. And if you were facing this giant, and with this big sword, and he had the sword in his hand, and he was ready to cut off your head, 砍你的头啊? No, thank you. I don't want to see a giant. And I'm sure you don't want to see a giant either. No way. Well, as the story unfolds, the ancient tales speak of a giant like this. He was big. He was bad. He was called Goliath. Okay, he was a bad guy. And he was on the Philistines' side. Philistines, these are the enemies of Israel, the Philistines. Okay, so Israel is fighting in a war against their enemies, Philistines. Okay, he's on the Philistine side. They have this big giant. And the big giant always goes out to the head and says, come. Well, we'll see what it says. Of course, all the people of Israel were afraid of Goliath. I think I would be too. They were afraid of Goliath because he was so big and so strong. Hey, nobody wanted to go out and fight with him. Why would they want to do that? I mean, you go out and fight with him, you lose. In this case, you lose your head. You die. He was too big and too strong. Goliath was also very arrogant, 很傲慢. He said a lot of very bad things. In fact, if you look at the ancient tales and read it, it's almost like I can hardly read this stuff. This means he was very proud of himself. 对自己很傲慢, he thought he was, well, to use modern language, he was cool, he was awesome, he thought he was good. And he mocked other people. Mock, 辱骂别人. 辱骂别人. Especially the Israeli people in the army. He challenged the army of Israel, demanding that one of them come out and fight him. Okay? So 挑战以色列的军队. Send somebody out here. Send somebody out here. Come fight with me. He demanded. In this case, demanded is more like 要求. He says, come out and fight me. Of course, nobody dared to fight with such a giant. Nobody was interested in that. Would you? Of course not. Twice a day for 40 days. Can you imagine this? What a war. This is a war. This is a war. This is not, life as usual. 这个是战争啊. Twice a day, in the morning and in the afternoon, for 40 days, 40天. Goliath came out and repeated his challenge. 重复他的挑战. Come out here, you guys. Come out and fight me. 40 days. I think about it now. Never thought about it before. But this is quite a war. A war with no fighting for 40 days. I am sure that he really mocked, insulted, same word, 辱骂, his opponents. Opponent is 对手. In his case, it's the Israelis. He called them cowards. 胆小的人. Okay, coward. Nobody likes to be called a coward. Because the people were too frightened to fight him. And the king of Israel, King Saul. But King Saul and all of his followers were not brave enough to face Goliath. 不够勇敢面对歌利亚. In a way, I'm not so sure I wouldn't be the same, but God was on their side. They had forgotten that. But before we get to the rest of the story, here is some light on our path. Okay, now we come to more light on our path. Lena, today we're going to look at 1 Corinthians 10:12. 1 Corinthians 10:12, a very, very short text here. It says, "So, if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall."
好，我们来看看圣经的哥林多前书的10章12节说，所以自己以为站得稳的，需要谨慎，免得跌倒。
Okay, now in today's story, we are talking about a young man. Okay, 他是年轻人，
对，
少年。Okay, and he is very brave. Now, the question is, what did God do for him, or how did God help him become brave, or did he learn it himself?
这是一个非常好的问题艾老师。我想大卫从小他就是一个很聪明、很勇敢的少年人。这个是因为他的环境，是不是？如果只是坐在家里，不会变得勇敢，对不对？
对。
我想是因为他从小是一个牧羊的孩子，在旷野里面，他要保护他的羊群。那旷野里面有很多狮子啊，有熊啊，要去吃他的羊，他一定要保护他的羊。所以从小他就训练得很勇敢，再加上他有信心。
Right, and so I think God gave him bravery, 帮助他有这个额外的
勇气。
But much of his bravery came because he learned how to do it. Protecting his sheep, protecting the lambs, protecting his flocks of sheep. So I think this is very important that we have things that we can learn and that God uses what we have learned. 他是用我们已经学习的
知识。
知识。Okay, one day a teenager called David came and saw what was happening. He was upset that Goliath, and not only with just Goliath, but what he was saying against Israel and insulting heaven. Now, let's go back at this. 少年人 teenager, his 名叫大卫. Okay, he came and saw what was happening. 看到情况. Okay, what was happening? 所发生的事情. He was upset at what Goliath was saying. I mean, he listened to what Goliath was saying, and 他辱骂 not only God, but the Israelites. And he was not happy, upset. When you are upset, upset is one of these words that has many meanings. Upset, 不高兴, 很生气. It could mean many other things. He was upset against Goliath. So, especially because it does 辱骂 天国. So, David went to King Saul and offered to fight the giant. 他自愿愿意跟这个巨人这个打. Well, actually, you should know something here. King Saul was not a short man. The ancient tales tell us that King Saul was a head taller than everyone else. He was a tall person, but the giant was bigger. So David went to the king and said, "Hey, I'm willing to fight this giant." Now, the king thought that this was very stupid. Stupid, 很愚蠢. Of course it was stupid, because David was so young. 他是少年人. Of course he was a man, he was just a young man. And Goliath was an experienced soldier. 歌利亚是一个非常丰富的这个战士. See the difference? There's a big difference. But David insisted, and so the king agreed. He insisted. To insist, 坚持, I will go. I am not afraid of him. Everybody else was. But I am not afraid of him. I am willing to go. Goliath was mad that just a youth came out to fight him. You can imagine this. He's just a young man. And he was 非常生气 that a youth, 年轻人就来跟他打. David didn't even wear armor. 他没带这个盔甲. 没有带. Why? Well, actually he tried. He actually tried King Saul's armor. But guess what? It was too heavy. And it was the wrong foot. Well, you can imagine armor is made out of metal, and it fits just perfectly to the body size. So David Actually, the ancient tales said he hadn't tried them. 没有试一试他们. So he didn't wear the armor because it was too heavy. Well, can you imagine? Wear all this heavy, heavy metal on your body? Goliath expected an easy victory. 他认为很容易胜利. He just felt, hey, this is not going to be hard at all. But David used his slingshot. Have you ever heard of a slingshot? I've played with them, never was good at it. 弹弓, it's just a piece of a few cords of leather, and you put a rock in it, and you throw the rock, and it is able to 扔掉一个石头. So David used his slingshot to throw a stone at Goliath. The stone hit Goliath on the forehead. This is your forehead. And the stone hit him in the forehead with such force, 强的, so strong that the rock actually sank in. 就开始进入他的头. And Goliath fell down. David ran over and cut off Goliath's head with Goliath's own sword. 用歌利亚自己的刀剑在砍他的头。不单是如此， the Philistines ran away. Man, that was quite a war, wasn't it? 2 people. That's all. And Israel won, the Philistines lost. Now, this story shows us how even the strongest can be defeated by those who have right on their side. You got that? 最强的巨人 can be defeated. 可以被打败 by those who have right on their side. 如果这个正义在你的一边呢，上帝与你同在 you can defeat your enemies. Whatever enemies you have, you can defeat your enemies. Sometimes our enemies are just our thoughts, but we can defeat our enemies. Now, stay by for some words you need to know. Okay, now for some words you need to know. This is lesson 84, an arrogant giant. What does the word arrogant mean?
意思是说嚣张。艾老师让我试一试读这个 arrogant.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good. That's good. Arrogant. Okay, so tell me in a few words, what does arrogant mean to you?
就是很嚣张，很骄傲，很
Okay, good. That's just the idea of pride. Very proud. That's in the word arrogant. Woo. Okay, 给你100分。
谢谢。
Okay, now the next one is he was very proud of himself. In this case, proud of himself. How would you translate that?
是说自大，很
自大
自大，很骄傲，很了不起。
Okay, so again, proud, and pride, and arrogant, they all are very similar words, right? Okay, he challenged, this is Goliath. He challenged the army of Israel challenged.
挑战。
Okay, to 挑战. Okay, and he insulted his opponents. This is Goliath again. He insulted his opponents and insulted God too, for that matter. Insulted?
意思是说辱骂，就是非常羞辱的一些个语言啊。
Okay, to insult somebody is a 辱骂. And finally, the one we've been talking about this all along. David was not an old person; he was a teenager.
少年。
Okay, how old is your daughter?
This year is 15.
15. So
15
she's a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, that's all the time we have for words we need to know. Welcome back. Now we come to the end of this lesson. Maybe we've learned a few lessons. At least one lesson that I learned is there are no giants. If God is for us, who can be against us? 谁能够抵挡我们? Because God is for us. That's the lesson I learned. This is one of the most famous stories in all the ancient tales. Well, I wish that everybody lived happily ever after. Isn't that the way the stories used to always finish? Everybody lived happily forever and ever, forever. No. We're going to talk in the next lesson about a king's jealousy. 他的嫉妒. But you'll have to join us then. I hope to see you.
That's all for today, and thanks for watching. If you like Ancient Tales for Today, please visit atft.chinesehope.tv. You may also contact us by writing to ancienttalesfortoday@gmail.com. Again, that's ancienttalesfortoday@gmail.com. Tell your friends about Ancient Tales for Today. See you next time.